I just don't know. We've read so many good books. What's been your guys' favorite? Lunch Money was so good. So was Max Malone Makes a Million. And we just finished Coyote School News. I don't know how anyone would pick a favorite. They're all that good. Well, Mrs. Lawson here today, and I am so excited to read with you. We are mostly going to be focusing on Lunch Money and Coyote School News today. We are learning to observe and analyze details about characters and their actions and compare settings from the stories. We know we are successful when we can identify details about the main characters, describe the setting of a story, and compare and contrast elements of the stories. So, for our foundational skills today, we are focusing on homographs. So these are words that have the same spelling and different meanings and origins and sometimes different pronunciations. So in this sentence, let's read it. I live on a ranch that my great-grandfather built. So we've got live. The news broadcast was live right outside the school. So they're spelled exactly the same, but when you read them in a sentence, you have to realize which way they're using the word. Is it living somewhere or is something live happening right now? So can you figure out the words in these two sentences that look the same, but they're not really the same? Hopefully you figured out she grows squash every summer. And then be sure you do not squash or squish the tomatoes in the grocery bag. So they sound the same. I think it's squash, right? But one is food and one is squashing something or smashing it, right? So today for your foundational skill, you're going to read each sentence and circle the correct definition for the underlined word. So Susan noticed a bat flying in the sky. Is that a piece of sporting equipment? Did she see a bat, like a baseball bat flying through the sky? Or do you think it's the winged animal? What do you think, fourth graders? So use that really good brain of yours and get those correct definitions underlined. And then on the second part, write a list word to complete each sentence. Then write a definition for the word. So you're just going to drag the correct word into those spots. So for comparing text today, good readers can make connections across text by identifying similarities. So let's look for connections between elements like setting and main character. So really quick, I want you to draw this chart on your piece of paper, fourth graders, because we are going to focus on the setting. So we can compare setting from different stories by comparing and contrasting details about where the stories take place. So we are going to start by looking back at Coyote School News. So it says, my name is Ramon Ernesto Ramirez, but everyone calls me Monchi. I live on a ranch that my great-grandfather built a long time ago when this land was part of Mexico. That was before the United States bought it and moved the line in 1854. My father has a joke about that. He says my great-grandfather was an Americano, not because he crossed the line, but because the line crossed him. So that gives us some context of where the story takes place. It is on the Ramirez Ranch. It was part of Mexico until the United States bought that area and it moved the line. So now it's part of the United States. So if I'm using my background knowledge about the regions, which we're learning a lot about this year, what region do you think this is in, his ranch? Yeah, good job, fourth graders. We know that this is in the southwest region of the United States. So in this story, what places does Monchi go to? Well, he's at his ranch. He goes to school because he has to write the news. Where else do they go, fourth graders? Yeah, he goes, well, it's in Tucson, Arizona. It talks about that in the story. So we know the state, we know the city, and now we know the region, and then there's just some local places too. So we have all this information about Coyote School News. Now let's pop over and check out Lunch Money. So When he was still in nursery school, Greg had taken charge of recycling the family's trash. He emptied all the waste baskets at least once a week. So this is just talking about all of his recycling. As a 7 and 8-year-old, Greg had found other ways to make money around the house and yard. He shined his dad and mom's dress shoes for 50 cents a pair. He scrubbed black heel marks and old wax off the floor tiles in the kitchen for 10 cents a square. So still nothing about the setting yet. He dug dandelions out of the lawn at the rate of 4 for a nickel. And he picked Japanese beetles off the shrubs for a penny a bug. At first, Greg enjoyed simply having the land of opportunity. He was thin but wiry and strong enough to tackle any job he put his mind to. Greg raked and bagged leaves in the fall and again in the spring. He washed cars all spring, summer, and fall, and on hot days he sold lemonade. He shoveled snow and salted icy sidewalks in the winter. Greg became a feeder of cats. Oh, so there is the big clue, fourth graders. You know, we've learned all about the United States this year, and we've learned about the seasons, how some parts of the United States don't have all those 4 seasons, right? So in this story, we found out Greg has those long, hot summers, trees lose their leaves in the fall, and snow in the winter. So we know he's probably not hanging out in the South too much if they have a ton of snow. So he must be more in a different part of the United States. Now let's keep digging. What places does Greg go to during the story? As Greg went down the center aisle, he got a good look at Mrs. Davenport sitting at the second row with the other principals. She wasn't smiling. Greg handed a copy of Return of the Hunter and a copy of The Lost Unicorn to each of the 5 committee members. Ooh, I remember what was happening. Fourth graders, do you know where this is taking place? I'm going to keep reading and see if you can figure it out. Greg sat at the table in front of the microphone. A woman from the local cable channel turned on a video camera, and a small red light began blinking at him. Greg tried to smile into the camera, but his mouth was so dry his lips got stuck on his front teeth. His pounding heart made it feel like he had a squirrel running around under his shirt. The microphone was high, so Greg pulled one leg under him, cleared his throat, leaned forward, and rattled off his first sentence in a loud, squeaky voice. I'm Greg Kenton, and I go to Ashworth Intermediate School. Greg gulped and forced himself to talk slower and lower. I started making little comic books over the summer. Okay, so I hope you figured it out. That scene was somewhere. Now we're going to jump somewhere else. See if you can figure out the setting of this scene. Ashworth Intermediate School was a big outfit. And when you put 450 kids, mostly between the ages of 9 and 12, under one roof, a certain amount of hubbub and clutter is normal. And therefore, room 27 was not normal. Room 27 at Ashworth School was never messy, never loud. Room 27 was always like a peaceful island, an oasis of order and calm. That's because the small kingdom known as Room 27 was controlled by Mr. Anthony Xenotopoulos, who for obvious reasons was known simply as Mr. Z. Okay, so what do you guys think? What are all those settings? Do you remember them all? So in Lunch Money, we have Greg's house, we have the various places inside Ashworth Intermediate School that we just talked about with Mr. Z's room, and then we have Miss Sanborn's room too. Then we have that site of the school committee meeting, that first page that we read, if you remembered that. So good job. We found information about both settings, and we kind of can compare them now. We know they're not taking place in the same region, most likely, because Monchi's on a ranch. It's probably not snowing down there in Arizona very much. It might, but not every winter like it is where Greg lives. So, how did Greg react when he learned that someone else was making many books? Let me give you a few seconds, pause the video, reread this page, and see if you can figure it out. So it says a deep scowl formed on Greg's face as he realized what he was holding. It was obvious. Some other kid was trying to cash in on his idea. And who was the person responsible for this? This sneak attack? This giant ripoff? Greg didn't even have to look. He knew. Only one person would have dared to copy his idea like this. But Greg turned to the first page of the little book and looked anyway. And there was the proof. In tiny, perfect cursive, just below the title, written and illustrated by Mara Shaw. So that scowl kind of gives it away. He gets mad. He says they're ripping him off. It's his idea. It's a sneak attack. So he is mad and he feels ripped off. So now we're going to compare. So dig deep, fourth graders. How is this similar to how the students at Coyote School get ideas for their newspaper? Let's go back and look. So it says, all week, we have been working on our first Coyote news. Natalia made up the name and Joey drew the coyote. First, we look at some other newspapers, the Arizona Daily Star, Western Livestock Journal, and Little Cow Puncher. That one we liked best because all the stories and pictures were done by kids. Monchi, said Lolly, put me cute. What? I said. Sometimes it's not easy to understand my little sister's English. Miss Byers says you have to help me put words to my story, she said. Okay, I told her, but I have my own story to do, so hurry up and learn to write. Lolly's stories were muy tanta. Ooh. But one thing was good. She remembered how to write all the words I spelled for her. So it is kind of the same because it says down here, they looked at those other newspapers, but did they really copy them? No, they're not sitting there and copying word for word, right? They are getting ideas from them and they're using it as a model. And that's what Mara did as well. She used Greg's as a model. We figured out in the end, she didn't really steal what he was doing or rip him off like Greg thinks. So for your reading response today, what 3 swell ideas does Miss Byers have? What do those ideas have in common? So she has some swell ideas. And then what are Greg's ideas mostly about? Until the end of the story, who benefits from Greg's ideas? So take some time. We're going to make a connection between the different ideas that Miss Byers has and that Greg's has. And fourth graders, me and Kane say, have a great rest of your day. Bye.